Sometimes there's a lot of different things that can prevent us from getting things out of our backlog. Now, those of you guys that are probably wondering, yes, everything you're seeing has been streamed, and this video was recorded and originally last night when I streamed. The last night actually being at the time of this recording at the 9th, so this stream was actually on the 8th. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate some of the things that I had said there alongside some of the gameplay that we had did on stream originally. That Final Fantasy XIV is a game that I feel, well, one, is fantastic. I don't think that's really a secret. I'm pretty sure most people that have sampled Final Fantasy XIV has nothing but positive things to say about it. However, whenever Final Fantasy XIV is brought up, especially on the topic of getting people into Final Fantasy XIV, there's always these few different phrases you hear that come along with it. You got to get through a Realm Reborn, and Realm Reborn is hard to get through. It's, the weakest of, all of the game. But then once you get to the expansions, everything just, opens up. And, honestly, I can totally see that being the case. And practically every Final Fantasy XIV fan says the exact same thing. I'm just going to honestly take it as fact at this point. But honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like saying things like that can have a negative effect on people trying to play the game, because honestly, that was a big reason why I still hadn't finished A Realm Reborn. I had felt that, yeah, the game is fun, but getting through A Realm Reborn, and honestly, I feel like the game prioritizes world building and lore over actual story, which honestly works for a lot of series. I feel The Legend of Zelda does that really, really well, and honestly, it puts that first over story in practically every game aside from a few. However, this one being an MMO, the amount is way more than you get in any Zelda game. I'd say the first few hours of this game gives you more world building and lore than almost an entire Zelda game has, on its surface. Of course, there's plenty if you dig deeper, of course, but this being an MMO, everything has dialogue. Everything has dialogue. Even the littlest of things you do, practically every NPC, at least the way it feels like every NPC has some kind of side quest that you can do. And this is not a bad thing though. You hear me saying this, but I'm not saying this as a negative stigma. What I mean by that is this game is filled with content. And I know there are tons of people who want that kind of content and world building, because honestly, that kind of just gives them more to talk about. People like me in my profession, having more to talk about, is something that is a blessing. I don't want to be one of those people who feels like they don't really know what to talk about right now, because there's nothing really popping, for a specific scene. But in Final Fantasy XIV, it feels like it's impossible to actually run out of things to talk about, because there's so many things actually going on, even if it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. And to some people, I feel this is going to be a big sticking point that'll make people not finish it, because it's so much to digest that it's hard to really understand what's really going on, especially with all the abbreviated names and the different cultures, everything that's thrown at you. It's hard to really digest what's fully going on between these places and these people. But at the end of the day, that's kind of not what this video is about. Those are people that were on stream, you guys know. I'm kind of here today to talk about why I feel Final Fantasy XIV, despite all of those things people may have said that did make me feel like, okay, maybe I'm never going to end up playing through this game, ended up being a great reason for me to get back to it. Maybe it was the hype because of Endwalker getting announced recently, that being the newest expansion for Final Fantasy XIV that's going to be coming out fall of 2021. And of course, it's huge homage to Final Fantasy IV. I didn't really see the trailer because, I didn't want to spoil myself despite having not played Final Fantasy XIV really yet. But I still felt like, maybe one day. So I'd rather not, see it. But I still saw images here and there that would talk about, that would show obvious, things that point to Final Fantasy IV. And as a huge Final Fantasy IV fan, that was right up my alley. And honestly, as I said, earlier this year and late last year, I planned on, transitioning to JRPG content primarily, as plenty of people who watch this channel can already tell based off the more than just Kingdom Hearts videos. And Final Fantasy is something I always want to talk about, as most of you guys that come onto the live streams or, you know, hang out on Discord, you guys know I'm a pretty big Final Fantasy fan. I haven't played all of them, but Final Fantasy XIV being, you know, the one for me was something that I really wanted to happen, especially because YouTubers I really look up to, some friends I have, a lot of them are all super into Final Fantasy XIV and call it a life-changing experience. And honestly, after my probably 40 something hours of the game, I gotta agree, it truly just is a fantastic game. It truly is at practically every angle. And there's a few reasons as to why. I could go on forever. That's why this video isn't scripted, but I could literally go on forever. But there was a couple points I wanted to talk about that really showed me how fantastic this game was. There was this time, there are certain points during Around Reborn where I feel like, what is this? Why am I doing this? Because there's a lot of missions that just feel like pointless fetch quests. You go to this person, you know, to give them this. This person says, oh, I can't take it like this. I need to do this. So you go and do this, come back, you know, oh, okay, good. Now go do this, leave, go do whatever you have to do, come back. Oh, now you're done with me. Go to this guy, boom, go back, boom, back and forth. You're basically running out doing errands for a bunch of different people. So you got to do like 4 errands for like 5 different people. And it just feels mind numbing. And like, while I'm doing it, I was like hating it. But then it ended up coming back and showing me that this wasn't all pointless. And it's mainly because the NPCs in game told you that you were getting these things for one reason, which honestly felt like it was completely, you know, what was the point of it? And that was the point. They were trying to make you think that you were just doing this for whatever reason, I guess to build their trust or whatever. But in the end, what they were really doing was determining your heart. Yeah, they know that, you know, you're going through stuff right now and you're in a hurry, but the fact that you still had a heart of gold enough to help these people with what they needed help with, you know, it just showed what kind of person that they really are, that even in the most dire of circumstances, you kept calm, put your personal feelings aside, and did what you needed to do for the sake of what needs to be done. And in the end, these people were, you know, all these people that you were helping out ended up being the champions that you were looking for, who felled the primals, you know, those years ago. And it kind of blew my mind that I honestly hadn't even considered it, because the game had did something similar to this before, where it feels like, okay, well, why am I doing this? But in the end, the fact that they were able to make it all tie into the main plot in a way to where the player had no idea, and a lot of the resources you were gathering ended up being things to celebrate your victory. It's like they had so much confidence in you that the stuff they were making you get ended up being ingredients for a party, for a celebration of an event you hadn't even done yet. That's how much confidence they had in you. And I thought that was marvelous. I absolutely thought it was marvelous. And the way they also set up how the dungeons work through the main story, though if you're a DPS class, it can kind of take a little bit, because they have to find people of certain classes that are able to help you out and on the same mission. But I know it only takes a little bit if you're a DPS class like me, but I know if you're a cleric or a tank, it doesn't take nearly as long. A lot of people just like being DPS, but when you actually get into the dungeons and you go and take on these huge bosses, and sometimes the bosses even have like puzzle elements to it, to where you guys are getting attacked by the room itself and you have to go and disable what's actually hurting you from the room, like whether it's taking out these lamps and things like that, you know, to actually go and fell the boss. And it's absolutely creative, and especially since you're playing with real people and it ties into the story too. Oh, it's absolutely marvelous. They make these battles feel so grandiose and over the top. It absolutely is fantastic. This world is humongous. There's so much to do in it. The story is ended up being gripping. Yeah, of course, there are moments where I'm wondering, what am I doing here? In a way, I do genuinely feel that way. That's one point that I will genuinely say. Yeah, even if it does tie into something, you know, really important and does feel satisfying to to where I'm glad I did do those things, it still feels while I'm doing it, I'm wondering what's the point. I want to know what the point is, which they always tell you, but again, getting to that point can suck. It never normally takes that long. It just feels that, you know, when the pace of the story is going so well, then you have to do that. It kind of gets annoying, especially when I want to get to the good stuff, primarily just because of everything that I was fed about the game getting so good and everything like that, especially since from what I hear, I'm getting closer towards the end of a Realm Reborn. So I kind of wanted to make this mid retrospective, I guess. I wanted to talk about a Realm Reborn from a perspective of somebody who has done nothing but hear about it and now is finally playing it for the first time. So I don't have the judgment, I guess, or mindset of somebody who's experienced, you know, Heaven's Ward or Stormblood or Shadowbringers or anything like that. I feel like once you've been polluted to that point, you can't think of this game as anything else but GOAT. And, you know, sometimes some people might even find it hard to judge the game on its actual flaws. So being able to make this video before I've technically even finished it, but I've experienced the majority of A Realm Reborn, it makes me happy that I feel the way I do. I honestly find myself not being able to put the game down. Honestly, if it wasn't for this video and streaming the game, actually being able to have this video through a stream, you know, ended up really making sure that we did at least have some content come out. Yeah, I've been streaming, but in terms of video, if it wasn't for me recording this while streaming, then that would have been a bad thing. But I'm glad I was able to get something out of it. Have you guys played Final Fantasy XIV or Realm Reborn? Excuse me. You guys really should if you haven't already. It is free up until Heaven's Ward. It is free if you've never played the game before. So certainly go ahead, download it, you know, on PS4 or PC, something. Experience this game. It is absolutely fantastic, and you can bet everything that once I finish A Realm Reborn, I plan on making a deep, you know, video and under the lens type video about the story of each of the actual game story. So Realm Reborn will get one, you know, then afterwards Heaven's Ward will get one, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and hopefully I can have all of those done by the time Endwalker comes out, so we can do one for End's Ward, and of course Endwalker, excuse me. But hopefully that will end up being really well, and I hope you guys did end up enjoying this. I know it was something very different, you know, unscripted. You know, I don't think I've done an unscripted video since this year started. I think I did one, but that was technically recorded the year before, but but hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you haven't already, liking and subscribing would really do a lot for me. I really would appreciate it, especially since we're so close to 10K. We might even already be at 10K at the time of this upload. But if we are, thank you guys so much. And even if we're really close, I would really appreciate any kind of support you guys can give me. But thank you guys so much for watching. My name is KingdomAce, and remember my words of courage to stay strong, stay beautiful, and always look skyward.